The late 80s, 1988 to be exact, gave us our next Lucio Fulci film, Touch of Death. But does it mark a return to form for the maestro? Or is it simply 86 minutes of unrelenting madness and bloodshed? The answer is, well, it's definitely the latter. Touch of Death opens with a man calmly eating dinner while watching a woman on television. He then walks into a back room, where that very same woman lies dead on the table. Without hesitation, he dismembers her with a chainsaw, somehow managing not to get a single drop of blood on himself. Impressive. He then grinds her remains into mince, feeding portions to both his cat and himself, while the bones are thrown to a group of pigs he keeps outside. It's an astonishing, insane opening, and believe me, it only gets stranger from there. This well-dressed cannibalistic maniac is Lester Parson, played by Fulci regular Brett Halsey. We soon learn that Lester targets wealthy single women to fund his crippling gambling addiction. However, his mountain debts have spiraled far beyond his control, particularly when he crosses paths with his shady creditor, Randy, played by Al Cliver. With no way out, Lester continues his murderous spree, while a relentless voice inside his head convinces him he's making mistakes, and that the police are closing in. The next murder is especially gruesome, but not before the film takes another bizarre detour. Lester makes love to a bearded woman. Yes, she's far from the only attractive woman in the film, with something distinctly unusual about her appearance, so prepare yourself. When Lester finally attacks her, he repeatedly bludgeons her skull, only for her to get back up, and the chase continues. After cornering her in the kitchen, he forces her face into a hot oven, melting the flesh from her skull. Fulci doesn't shy away from the violence, lingering on the horrifying effects as strips of skin peel away. From there, the formula is fairly straightforward. Lester meets another wealthy woman, lures her home, something utterly bizarre happens, and she's dispatched in a spectacularly gruesome fashion. Throw in some strange attempts at comedy and a series of memorable gore set pieces, and you have Touch of Death, perhaps the strangest Fulci film ever made, if such a title is even possible. I don't want to spoil everything, because there are a few twists along the way, and the practical effects are unquestionably the film's biggest strength. That said, the comedy rarely lands. It's clearly intended to be darkly humorous, but more often than not it simply feels awkward and surreal. Despite that, I genuinely recommend seeking it out for yourself. It's oddly compelling, and I found myself completely glued to the screen, wondering what absurdity could possibly happen next. Although filmed in 1988, Touch of Death wasn't released until 1991, and it certainly feels like late period Fulci. The budget is painfully low, even by his standards, and the production often looks incredibly cheap. Even so, Fulci somehow manages to stitch together a coherent enough plot to create one of the most bizarre serial killer films ever made. Several scenes would later reappear in A Cat in the Brain, and the film was originally conceived as part of the Lucio Fulci Presents series, an anthology of 8 films produced for the direct-to-video and television market, with Touch of Death serving as Fulci's own contribution. Brett Halsey, returning after previous collaborations with Fulci, takes centre stage as Lester. His performance leans into understated, almost deadpan comedy, and he spends much of the film in silence with relatively little dialogue. He handles the material well enough, although there are moments where he appears somewhat disengaged. Then again, when you're acting in scenes involving a woman serenading you, and you repeatedly slap her across the face while she's still singing, it's hard not to blame him. Often dismissed as one of the weakest entries in Fulci's filmography, I find myself strangely fascinated by this chaotic horror oddity. Working under difficult conditions and battling deteriorating health, Fulci was determined to make another film, and against the odds, he succeeded. Whether that was for better or worse is open to debate, but The Touch of Death continues to be discussed decades later, just like many of his other horror films. If I had described Touch of Death in a single word, it would be grotty. It's dirty, grimy, sleazy and undeniably strange. Yet somehow, despite all its flaws, I'm genuinely glad it's part of my collection, and I'm surprisingly looking forward to watching it again. Just remember one thing as you sit down to watch it. Keep repeating, it's only a comedy. It's only a comedy. It's only a comedy. Hello everyone and welcome to the next physical media Blu-ray review portion, and that is 1988's Touch of Death, released by 88 Films. Again, another solid release by 88 on the Italian collection, another Fulci title, always grateful for that. They always put, good work into their releases, so I mean, yeah, just pleased to have obscure later day Fulci on the line, and again this is no exception. Never seen the film, never really heard of it before this release, and yeah, jumped at it straight away. I think it's way out of print now. I do believe that there is a version that came with a slipcover, maybe a booklet, I'm not 100% sure, but again, don't really see those pop up often. This has become a more uncommon title from the line recently, but yeah, grabbed this when it was first released, and it just sat on the shelf like many films. Sadly didn't get around to it until doing this series, but yeah, it's transfer audio solid. Again, nice presentation, fits in well with the other titles. Got a bunch of Fulci movies on the Italian collection, so they all look pretty together on the shelf. And this is just quite a unwatched, unheard movie from him. To be honest, it's not had a release since. Don't know if it's had a release stateside. I think Raro Video put out Blu-ray actually, so again, not 100% sure, but like I said, way out of print over here, and no signs of a 4K update or a different label picking it up. So sadly, I think this is going to be it for a little while. Not one of his most popular titles, but yeah, there's the cover art, quite striking. It's got the Italian text on it, which I quite like, but yeah, it's quite a cool cover. Again, quite striking. Not really, I mean, if you've seen the film, which I recommend you do, yeah, I mean, what's going on with the zombie hands at the bottom, but again, it's Fulci, you never know what's going to pop up. But yeah, quite a striking cover art. It's number 34 in the Italian collection. Release date, I want to say 2016, maybe 2017. I can't see a release date on the back, but yeah, I want to say it's around there. But yeah, you get a few special features, uncompressed English soundtrack, uncompressed Italian soundtrack with English subtitles, reflections in a broken mirror, working with Lucio Fulci and making Touch of Death, a featurette with contributions from Michele De Angelis and Marco Di Stefano, and reversible sleeve featuring English titles. So not packed with features. I've not checked out that documentary, but I'm sure that's a great watch. Again, anything from this kind of later day Fulci, I'm always quite interested in, behind the scenes and just how these types of films were made, because again, it's a far cry from what he was doing at the start of the decade in the 80s. So yeah, I'm sure that's quite interesting. But with it being such an obscure and just forgotten title, I mean, I'm not surprised that there isn't much on it. It would have been perhaps nice to have an interview with Brett Halsey. I know he's popped up on a few of these releases, so again, he's the main star from the film, so it would have been quite nice to see him. But yeah, it's a nice release for what it is, really. So there's the disc art. Again, no booklet or inserts or anything like that. Like I said, I do think there was a variant release that perhaps may have contained a booklet. It definitely had a slipcover, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, just again, what you expect from the Italian collection. Simple yet effective. And the reversible sleeve is just the same cover art with just the English title, Touch of Death. So nothing too special. But so what did I think about Touch of Death? It was an experience, for sure. I don't know if it's a good or bad one, to be honest, but yeah, I mean, I really had no idea going into it. I know clips had been used for Cat in the Brain, which I have seen, so I was familiar with a few snippets from the film, but yeah, it kind of opens up as just quite a straight laced in the mind of a serial killer following, him committing these brutal acts of murder. But quickly you do kind of see that there's a bit of a comedic tone to it. A few recognizable faces as well. Like I said, Brett Halsey, Al Cliver pops up, Zora Korova. So, a few regulars, but yeah, it was after about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I was like, okay, this is balls to the wall. This is bizarre. I mean, the gore, definitely a standout. Super gory. Some really brutal set pieces in there. I was quite shocked at, to be honest. But yeah, it's just a weird film. Not much dialogue either. And yeah, it's just weird blend of comedy. Again, it could be a lost in translation thing, being Italian. I mean, not all comedy translates well, but yeah, I see where he was coming from, and kind of putting a spin on these types of films that really made him a household name. For some, the brutal horror and the the over the top gore and the cliches and the tropes. You kind of put a little comedic spin on them, but yeah, just odd. Like I mentioned in the review, a lot of women with facial hair, which again, if you're not expecting it, it just like comes out of left field, and it's never acknowledged. There's a few things in the film that kind of like you're scratching your head, like WTF is going on, but again, it's plays it quite serious in a sense. So yeah, it's weird, definitely strange. But to be fair, I did have a lot of fun with it. It is entertaining, and again, for a shoestring budget, late '80s production, yeah, I can't knock it too hard. Like I said, it might not have hit the mark that he was trying to achieve, but a lot of it did land, and yeah, definitely recommend it just because of how bizarre it is. And yeah, I'll probably watch it again, and now that I know what to expect, probably appreciate it a little bit more. But just odd, very odd. I think that's the best way to describe it. But again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you again in just a minute. Thank you for watching, and take care.